Welcome back to the Wintry Wyvern. Today we're picking up where we left off with the Draconic Options UA that came out earlier this month. We're moving on to the 7 new spells introduced by this Unearthed Arcana, so if you want to check out the new races and feats from this doc, I'll put in a link to the previous video right up here and at the end of this video. All 7 spells are heavily themed around dragon magic, with a few of them being named after famous dragons in Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance lore. Looking at who gets what, you can tell that wizards, as always, get the pick of the litter, with no love towards the clerics or paladins. We're gonna start with the lowest level spell, climbing our way to the top. Icingdeath's Frost is named after a Faerunian white dragon named Ingeloacastamizilian, nicknamed Icingdeath by local barbarian tribes, likely because his real name's way too hard to pronounce. The name was inherited by a +3 scimitar found in his hoard after being killed by famed adventurers Dritz and Wolfgar, characters in R.A. Salvatore's Icewind Dale trilogy. The spell is appropriately frosty, definitely gets a 5-star approval from us at the Wintry Wyvern. It requires melt water, which is a fancy way of saying melted glacier ice, and hits in a 15-foot cone of freezing magic. A typo in the spell description states that it was once a 30-foot cone, which was probably nerfed right before release because a 30-foot cone is absolutely huge for a 2nd level spell. This spell is unique because it gives condition-like effects without inflicting a condition. Anyone who fails has their speed reduced to 0 until they or someone else spend a whole action clearing it. This is pretty great against solo enemies because there's no condition attached that they can be immune to, like restrained or grappled. The spell strangely doesn't describe how close an ally has to be to clear the ice. It steps into DM ruling if an ally can break the ice from, say, 100 feet away with a firebolt or something. I think it's a flavorful spell that just needs a little bit of clarification to be excellent. The namesake of Nair's Mischief belongs to Nair, the only Faerunian god that belongs to both the Draconic Pantheon and the Seelie Court. He was first mentioned in 1992's Complete Monster Mythology for AD&D, listed as one of the Sylvan gods. The tiny dragon deity of pseudo-dragons and fairy dragons revels in making mischief, so much so that even the Fae gods and goddesses find him frustrating to work with. His penchant for trickery is obvious in the spell, summoning the scent of apple pie, aggressive allergies, laughing gas, and sticky molasses in random succession. The spell's action economy isn't bad. After the initial cast, moving it and rerolling doesn't spend your action or bonus action. It's not too great a spell because it only moves 10 feet around and only triggers on your turn, so after the initial cast, it's unlikely anyone's gonna willingly end their turn near it. It's pretty great for zone control and covers a solid amount of space, but after a few levels you'll be looking to spend your concentration on something else. Flame Stride is a new spell for speedsters. For a 3rd level spell slot, you gain 20 move speed, immunity to op attacks, and 1d6 damage for every creature you pass by. This feels perfect for already fast characters like Tabaxi and Aarakocra, who can whiz by a number of creatures before taking the rest of their turn. There's a pretty clear comparison you can make with Haste, another 3rd level spell that doubles your speed. Instead of extra defensive stats, you get a little bit of damage that scales with higher spell slots. This is a pretty solid escape spell for mages caught in melee range, with its bonus action casting time. Since the damage triggers once per turn, Swift Stride shifters can trigger the fire damage again off turn as a reaction, using their shifting feature, which I think is neat. I think Haste is still the clear winner here, but if you have a friend that can help you stack Haste and Flame Stride, you'll find yourself with some real speed. Raulothim's Psychic Lance is definitely the most contentious of the new spells presented. Raulothim himself first appeared in Dragon Magazine 253 back in 1998. He's an emerald dragon with psionic talents, whose paranoia of otherworldly threats pushed him deeper and deeper into isolation. After spotting a flying vessel, he feared for the fate of the world and immediately began endlessly hoarding gold, magic, and precious valuables. One of his trademarks is making his massive collection of wands and staves float and fire at command, likely inspiring the aesthetic of this spell in particular. 4th level spells aren't really known for their damage, leaning more heavily into utility like Banishment, Dimension Door and Polymorph, or wide area effects like Wall of Fire and Sickening Radiance. Blight is the singular standout in the 4th level spell list that focuses on damage first and foremost, and is the easiest comparison. While Psychic Lance deals 1 less damage on average versus Blight, it also has 90 more feet of range, deals a damage type much less commonly resisted, and can even target creatures behind full cover if you say the target's name. This spell also incapacitates the target, meaning they lose out on all their chances to retaliate until the start of your next turn. Not only that, it forces an intelligence saving throw, which 9 times out of 10 is harder to beat than a constitution saving throw. There are reasons the Psionics UA spell list of 2019 was almost entirely cut before release, a large part of it involving the majority of the existing D&D bestiary not being designed to handle frequent intelligence saving throws. In addition, Psychic Glance also doesn't consume a spell slot if you say the target's name when they're not in range, which is handy if you don't care about stealth and repeat their name every 6 seconds until it works. Onomancy, a field of magic based around the power of an individual's name, was last seen in the wizard tradition of Onomancy, an Nathair subclass that also came out in October of 2019 and never made it to publication. It's also an enchantment spell, which means that a 10th level enchantment wizard can hit 2 targets with this spell, instead of just 1. The only real advantage Blight has over Psychic Glance is that it deals half damage on a successful save, versus a Psychic Glance that does absolutely nothing. This spell is very flavorful, perfect for embodying the magic of Raulothim, but in my opinion it's just a little bit overtuned. Summon Draconic Spirit is for every player out there that really wants a pet dragon, but doesn't want to play Ranger. You can skip all the hassle of companionship, love, and attention, and simply conjure a dragon to your service. 5th level spell slots are pretty crowded with hard-hitting spells, but there's plenty of reasons to add this to your repertoire. It has some clear advantages over Summon Celestial Spirit, which is also at 5th level, making up for its lack of range with more strength, more HP, a higher armor class, way higher speed, and 5 resistances, because clearly picking 1 is overrated. It even goes ahead and grants the caster 1 of these resistances, which is a bit strange since none of the other summon spells do that. Every turn it gets 2 attacks and a mini breath weapon that does a little bit of AoE damage, and it's a large creature so anyone can ride it, probably the most important detail. While Celestial Spirit is more supportive in nature, Draconic Spirit has the stats to hang in the thick of it for just a bit longer. Fizabn's Platinum Shield is named after Fizabn the Fabulous, a famous character from the Dragonlance novels. Fizabn is a fumbling, eccentric wizard with sometimes grey, sometimes white robes that occasionally helps out the heroes and eventually sacrifices himself to allow them to escape, a not so hidden nod to other famous literary magicians. Fizabn is actually a disguise for Paladin, the dragon god of good within the world of Krynn. You would think that magic tied to a god would be great for clerics and paladins, but since Paladin decides to present himself as Dragonlance Gandalf, a wizard spell it is. Half cover is a fancy way of saying +2 to AC and +2 to dexterity saving throws, which works in perfect tandem with the feature that reduces damage on all dexterity saving throws. The protection against elemental magic is a direct reference to his major conflict with Takesis, Dragonlance goddess of evil, often represented as a many-headed dragon akin to Faerun's Tiamat. Mechanically, this is a fun spell that lets you change who you're enchanting every turn, discerning who is in dire need of protection. I could see this bumped down to 5th level, if only to allow paladins to take it. If it wasn't obvious, its major benefit is making someone very, very good at fighting dragons. This would be the first spell in 5th edition explicitly named after a Dragonlance character, so many have predicted that a book based in that setting is on the horizon. Draconic Transformation is the highest level spell on this list, and certainly deserving of it. You take on aspects of a dragon, granting you blind sight, a flying speed, and a breath weapon. The most recent transformative spell we've seen is Tasha's Otherworldly Guise, which at 6th level provides you with the boons of the upper and lower planes. So this is a curious spell because it feels mostly like a mishmash of other spells in one. Blind sight can be found in the 6th level spell True Seeing, up to a range of 120 feet for an hour without concentration. Flying is obviously found on the spell Fly at 3rd level for 20 more speed, or on Otherworldly Guise 1 level earlier with 60 speed and +2 AC as a bonus. The breath weapon is most obviously compared to Dragon's Breath at 2nd level, the first bonus with major improvements over its predecessor with increased range and bonus action use. 3d8 is an average of 13.5 damage, which isn't amazing as a 13th level character, but a 30-foot cone is huge and could be useful for forcing multiple concentration checks. The bonus action damage is most easily compared to Crown of Stars at the same level, which doesn't require concentration. All in all, if you're looking for any of these features individually, there's likely a better alternative at a lower spell cost. As a package, the spell truly finds its niche in clearing out huge low-level mobs that have trouble attacking the skies. Great for zombie hordes and invisible stalkers and magical darkness, average against everything else. This technically still works in tandem with wild shape, so something like a flying dinosaur dragon isn't out of the question. At the end of the day, just looking like a dragon might be the greatest benefit of all. And that's it. The Draconic Options UA holds some great promise for books to come, and I really enjoyed the callbacks to less recently highlighted dragons in D&D history. Again, if you're looking for a full breakdown of the new Dragonborn, Kobold, or Draconic feats, I got a video for that right here. Thanks again for tuning in. May your strides always be fiery, your Fizabns always be fabulous, and above all stay frosty.